Welcome back to Rooks Up. My name is Farouk Bello and I'm the host of the Rooks Up podcast. And these videos I make are geared towards international students and international healthcare workers trying to get a job in the UK. In today's video, we're going to be talking about personal statements. Now, a lot of people know personal statements for jobs. Sorry, this is not personal statements for if you're trying to get into physio or you're trying to get into healthcare. This is for if you're trying to get out of physio school or university and get into the working population. Now, personal statements, it's hard either way because you have to consider a lot of things. And I will be completely honest, as an international, you're going to have to do a bit more than, someone who's a home student. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I just mean that you're going to have to give yourself the best edge. Now, there are three things I'm going to be talking about in this video that can give you that edge. Stay to the end to find out what it is. Now, please do remember to subscribe to the channel and, like the video. It really helps out a lot. But let's go into the video on the three things you need to know about personal statements. The first thing you should be looking at is the job description. Now, this goes without saying, when you're trying to apply for a job, you look at the job description, make sure that it actually aligns with what you're trying to get. Now, the job description is very important in this aspect because of the requirements that they're going to be asking you on the job description. If you're looking on NHS jobs, which I do strongly recommend you using as your primary source of finding a job in the UK, as opposed to the other ones, which I consider secondary and some of them more networking, but we're not going to get into that right now. Now, you're looking at the job description, obviously, and you need to know, is this role suitable for you? This is where you start. Is it a community role? I say community because I work community. Is it a neurological role? Is it a inpatient, outpatient? Now, you need to be able to determine if this is working for you. Now, I'm a physiotherapist. I know the different roles. I know what interests me, what doesn't interest me. And I know if I was applying for another job now, I know where I would ideally want to be going and I know where I would not want to be going. Because the main reason this is important is if you're writing your personal statement and you don't even like what you're doing and you're only applying just because, it's going to give you a bit of a dilemma where you're not able to fully express your interest in this role. And obviously this will be around your opening, statements for a personal statement. Why do you want this role, for example, or why are you picking this specific role? If it's a rotational role, because you want to get experience in different areas. If you don't want to do rotation and you want to go straight into MSK, you need to be able to, you're not going to have interest in doing rotations in respiratory, neurological, and you want to go straight into MSK, or you're already established, you're not a student, you've established as a neurological practitioner abroad and you want to come in here. So make sure that really does highlight, the job description part of it. Now, this one is a bit shorter part, but I'll get into the next part, which is number 2, the person specifications. I don't know how you pronounce it. The person specifications are very important in your personal statement. Let me tell you exactly why. Now, imagine this, you're writing your personal statement and you're thinking, what do I add into my personal statement? Let me tell you the truth about personal statement. When you're writing this, you have the person specifications right by your side. Now, and looking at exactly, do you meet these roles, okay? They're asking for someone who is, time management skills is on point, someone who has had experience in this. You need to be making sure that you are directly, obviously not copy and paste, but explaining how you actually, show these roles. For example, if they say they require a significant amount of team working because the work you're going to be doing is in an MDT, you need to be able to show where you have worked in an MDT. And I know some of this may seem very, rudimentary or very basic, but it's very important. You know why it's important? It's because when whoever is looking at your CV and they're reading your personal statement, they're also looking at the person's specifications to see if you actually meet the roles. Now, let me tell you the truth. You can write a very glowing, the best CV, but it's not for the right job, if you get what I mean. You're writing a whole, personal statement for the wrong job, which does not actually highlight the person's specifications. And even though that person really does like your CV, it's going to be difficult for them to be objective and say this person has a better role or is a better suit for this job. It might be a better suit for another job. You might get lucky, they might call you out for another one, but that's beside the point. We're trying to stick to what you're applying for because you actually know what you're applying for. The person specifications, now how I would say you should be using this is when you pull it up, now you're looking at these roles and you should be ticking and highlighting the specific ones, your strongest points, okay? If your strong points are lone working and adaptability, I would consider myself, adaptable, just the nature I've had to work in community. in regular community and in neurological and stroke community, which means I have developed adaptable skills. Now you need to be looking at these ones. Where are your strongest suits, and which ones are the ones that they're putting as the priority? Meaning, what are the, because there are two categories. There are the required and then desirable. You want to be meeting the required ones first and then looking at the desirables and saying, let me give you some extra points as well as how I can show these ones. Because obviously you can't write a whole 10-page booklet about your personal statement. You have to stick within the word count. So you have to prioritize what they want first. Okay, now how I did mine when I was going through the whole process was I had the person specifications, I looked at the ones I was strongest in, and I knew the ones that I could really sell myself on, made those ones my priority at the top of my essay, because it's natural. Everyone, if you're reading an essay, and if you imagine you have to read 100 or 50, after a while you're gonna start losing interest. But make sure you're using that at your top part of your essays, when you're making the personal statement, where your strongest suits are. And then add the desirables and extra things towards the end. And that's really what you want to be, nailing on the head when you're writing this personal statement, if I'm being completely honest. Now, let us talk about number 3, which I think for an international, someone coming from an international background, is your biggest selling point, if I'm being completely honest, is the fact that you're coming from an international background. The fact that you have experience, potentially, you definitely have an experience that someone else who's a home student does not have. Or no, a lot of them I have, some people from, British, they go abroad, they do a year abroad, or they do a placement abroad, but you've lived in a different country, you've lived in a different environment. Now, I will give you an example of myself. I'm from Nigeria, and I've worked in health clinics, I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in physiotherapy clinics in Nigeria. Not a lot of people who are working here can say, they have that experience. I'm one of the few people who are actually from Nigeria who are working here. And on my CV, I made sure that was there. On my personal statement, I made sure that to show the skills I have learned. Now, one of the things I learned, primarily coming from Nigeria, is not all the equipment and, is available there that is available here. It's completely different structure to an extent. Very good similarities, but there are also differences. And it's those differences I was using to hammer home things like working with minimal equipment, being creative, being able to think on the spot, working with people who are not speaking your language, because if you know anything about Nigeria, we have multiple different languages. We have Yoruba, Igbo, we have Hausa, and you're gonna have to be able to figure out how you're gonna be able to communicate. And that's one thing you put there: communication skills, adaptability skills, team working skills, and lone working skills. Those two, obviously they are in terms, paradoxical, but if you have both of them, because sometimes you're going to be on your own working alone and you're going to have to show it. And we're coming from a Nigerian background like myself, I was able to show these skills. And wherever you're coming from, wherever you were, even if you don't have, physiotherapy experience, you have to have some form of experience wherever you're coming from. If you're coming from an Asian country, for example, you're going to be able to use that to your advantage, saying that things are working differently there. And now you maybe, for example, studied here and you're able to merge both of them together. Or if you're coming straight, you've studied abroad and you've worked abroad and you now want to come into the UK, you can just say things like, what have you been learning while you were there? And how are you going to be able to bring what you've been doing over there into this context? And you want to be able to highlight that very well in your personal statement, for the sole reason that your personal statement is your time for you to shine, if I'm being honest. So that's the time where you really need to sell yourself as a good candidate, so that when they're putting people on top and shortlisting, your name is already there. Because if I'm being honest, if you're looking at students, they don't really care. If you're an international student, they don't really care about what grade you really got. And a lot of times you'll see that most of the time, if you got a 45% or a 95%, that's personal satisfaction, because healthcare workers are in such high demand right now. When I looked at NHS jobs, the number, you'll see the number there, the live, I think I saw 19,000, which is a lot of jobs that are available out there. And it was not the same number when I was applying, because they're in such high demand in different parts of the country. So you really need to sell yourself in your personal statement. But I do hope that was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe, you know the drill, and appreciate the support. If you wanted me to cover anything more specifically in the videos or about personal statements, if you want me to go more in depth about them, I think I fairly did it, but there are other factors you would have to consider. Do let me know, and I will make sure to make a video on it or cover it. And check out my socials at Rooks Health on Twitter, Rooks Health on Instagram, and Rookie on Twitter and Instagram as well. But till the next video on Rookself.